Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children in all ages, and welcome to another episode of Who's to Blame, the podcast, episode 545. It is CertaPro Paints presents Who's to Blame, the podcast. How we all doing, good people? Hope everyone is doing well on this fantastic Tuesday here. How we doing, good people? It's been a while for our listening pleasure since we did a podcast episode, but we thought the perfect evening, the eve, the night of the college basketball tournament of the men starts tonight. The play-in tournament is the well. Those women's get up this week as well. So action-packed the next 3 weeks. So here we go. Good people. If it's your first time tuning in, thank you so much. We have high fives in the building. Chest bump. Let's hug it out. Gotta get enough for the real thing for sure. If you're celebrating a birthday, happy birthday to you as well. If you're celebrating an anniversary, happy anniversary to you as well. Let's get through our pillars of the day. Good folk, good people. We're going to let it go. Let's give it time. Ignore them. Don't compete. Stay calm. It's on you. And laugh. And laughter has definitely been a part of the regime of the daily process here in the Who's to Blame studios. But with all that glitz and glamour that's going on right now, this time of the year, postseason about to start in hockey, as well as the NBA. Baseball's about to get its thing on, and it's the college basketball NCAA tournament for the men's and women. So there's a lot of hush, hush, quiet, quiet, point. I know what's going on, and we know what the NFL is up to. But in the madness behind all of this, that's why I wanted to kind of title today's podcast episode. The state of playing sports today has definitely changed in regards to watching it, participating in it, or if you're even coaching it, or if you're a player yourself. It has kind of changed on, it's more about you controlling the narrative of you. It's like getting a job in today's economy. It's not the typical way anymore. Nobody goes on 3 interviews anymore. Nobody does an application and a resume no more. Nobody sends a cover letter no more. Everything is changing. And with that being said, sitting back and paying attention as a sports fan and understanding how this thing plays out, I can't help but not question it, but I'm wondering who's to blame for the state of play in sports today. We can go down the line. We have the NIT. The NIT in college basketball in years past was deemed as though if you win the NIT, are you saying you deserve to be in the NCAA tournament? Back in the days of the field of 32 to 48 to 64, now to 68. Are you saying you deserve to be in that field if you win the NIT? It's a joke to the laughing stock basketball fans when an NIT fan said statements like that. Even when talk shows do it, we think it's a laughing matter. But in the end, if we look at the bigger picture here, what are we truly saying? So if you're saying you don't make the NCAA tournament at all, you didn't make it at all, but now you have an invitation to the NIT. But you decide, hey, I don't want to play in NIT. We're not going to play. Is that fair to the coaches? Is that fair to the seniors on that team that know for sure this is it? I'm not playing overseas. I'm not playing for the Harlem Globetrotters. I'm not going to the G League. I'm not going to the NBA. This is the end of my career. So is that fair when teams and coaches and sometimes some players deem as though, hey, we don't want to go to the NIT. But all you need is what? 5 to 7 players to field a team. That's all you need. You need 5 on the floor and a couple of substitutes. You can do that. You've played with less before. Many of us grew up in the hood with things we didn't have, but we figured out a way to make things work in our best interest for us. On the other side of that, We know sports is about money. It's not about faith, family, and brotherhood. Not all the time. Sometimes that sport comes first. We know that. At the same time, what follows that? Money. Who's to blame? We want more. We require more. We've required more teams, more games, more coverage. That means more money. So someone's going to lose out on the money or the opportunity that presents itself when it comes to either missing out or going in on the NIT. And I'm not going to lie. In my high school days, my military days, I thought the NIT was a fucking joke. But now, the older you get, you see things in a different light and different way. Maybe that coach could use a couple more games to figure this thing out, how to run this offense or figure out that defensive maneuver he's been waiting on. Maybe this players need a little bit more developmental skills before he does his off-season workout to try to get in the NBA or continue his path through basketball. Even though we didn't get in the tournament, this goes for men and women. Even though your path doesn't go the way you want it to go, you didn't make the tournament, would you stop playing basketball? And you're trying to get better at your skill craft, your draft selection, your financial situation. It's a bigger picture when you sit back and look at it. And that right there is just looking at it from the NIT collegiate standpoint. What about the collegiate standpoint in football games? The bowl games. How many of you have been disappointed because a player said, hey, I'm not going to play in that game. That bowl game is not important. I don't need to play in that bowl game for me to take my career beyond the collegiate level to get into the NFL. It's not going to affect my draft position, my stock, or my money. So I don't need to play in that game. There are players that think that way because in years past, they've gone on the history of people that have done this before them, either in their family or from their school. There's a story to be followed when it comes to when players are doing this. You're not going to be the first one to say, hey, I don't want to play in that bowl game. If it doesn't deem the competition for you, and right now we prioritize things on thinking we can foresee the future of an injury, of a financial downfall, trying to predict our future by ways of kind of seeing if we play in this game, the type scenario. But again, what about those kids that are not going to play football anymore? They still want to get their shine on. They still want to give their contributions to the school, the facility, and their teammates and their coaching staff. Is it fair when teams say, hey, we don't want to play in that bowl game? Are we taking this as the eyes have it? Eyes have what? We're not playing this bowl game. Who's to blame for that? We can keep this going. What about what we just witnessed at the NFL Combine? We hear year in, year out, who's not going to work out, who's not going to throw, who's not going to take a physical. What type of narrative is this doing where you don't want to do something, but you still want to get a raise, you want to get paid, you want the notoriety, but you don't want to go through the process? When did this change? When did this shift? Look at the way the narrative is going toward the players that do not want to work out at the NFL Combine. The players that don't want to do a physical. The players that don't want to throw, don't want to run, don't want to lift, don't want you to do a blood test on them. Think about the narrative of that, how that affects the player, the franchise, moving forward with that team that has been in this situation before. We want you to, or you should be able to control your own narrative and your own path and your own story to your success by the powers that be, the resources, and the way everything has shifted in the past 5 years. To me, that's what they're saying. You control what you want to control. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes back in a double negative or in a conversation way to make us doubt the individual even more of the choice, or even the verbiage sometimes. Look at the way Caleb Williams got all that attention just because he didn't want to do the physical. What is that saying if someone doesn't want to do a physical? What is that saying to you? If you're in a position to draft a player, scout a player, or recruit a player, you don't want me to do what? Just think of that. Think of that hey, I don't want to throw today. I don't want to run. And a lot of fast athletes, when it comes to running, don't like doing all that running that much. I mean, this is, if I'm going to get paid off this skill set, I want to make it to make sense. You know what I'm saying? And when we challenge that from the player standpoint or the agent or the family, we somehow come up with this story. Oh, they think they're better than the league, or they're trying to be bigger than something they haven't even done yet. They haven't even got a professional check yet, and they're trying to do professional moves. Who's to blame? It all comes back to us. This is what we wanted. We wanted players to have more say-so, more input in direction on their future in this sport. Any particular sport, we want people to be able to have some say-so. Look at the music industry, okay? Look at television. Look at movies. Look at film. Look at that. Do you really want that many people controlling what you do? And then we have the audacity as fans of you to criticize you. But you're not even control your own thing. But in sports, we're giving you the right to control your own story. We're just questioning, why does the story about the same tale have so many different paths of direction? I think that's the bottom line for us as fans. When did this start? Of the way you're choosing not to play or participate, even though you want to go professionally, okay? You want to be a model, but you don't want nobody to share pictures of you. What? What is? You want to be a professional dog walker, but you're afraid of dogs. What? That's what I feel like I'm dealing with when it comes to the situation of the state of playing in sports right now. Where are we at? We can't force kids to play anymore. You can't live your parents' path of failure, injury, jail time, pregnancy, murder. Because they were great athletes and they failed on those four things. Somebody got pregnant, somebody went to jail, somebody got murdered, somebody went to prison. So now you put the pressure on the child. Who's to blame? That's where it seems to be heading back to me. And then my all-time favorite, the NBA, load management. They don't want to play either. She got all these examples of people not wanting to play sports. That's why I'm challenging the state of playing sports today. Where are we at? We can't force you. Participation trophies are legal now. It's in the Constitution. It's in the bylaws of competitive play in sports. But when did we get here? How did we get here? How do we get out of this thing? How do we get out of this thing? It's like a toxic relationship. The sex is fantastic, but that other shit has to go. How do you get out of that? How do we get out of this vortex of sports of not wanting to play, but still wanting the prestige, the money, and the verbiage to go along with it? How does that make sense? I'm trying to follow along the best of my abilities here. I'm a fan of it. I understand it. I get the entertainment side. I get the competitive edge. I get the financial edge. But I want it to make sense for those players that know for a fact this is it. And you're not going to let me play that last game? We can't go to the NIT because what? You don't want that title of NIT associated with this college or university. You don't want to go to that bowl game because it's not a big-time corporate sponsored bowl game. It's still $850,000 for the college or university. But I can't play in this game because it doesn't deem honorable to the coaching staff, the university, or some of our top players. Who's to blame for that? The next 4 years, throughout all the sports, we're going to see that being challenged more than life itself, the state of playing the game, because we've given so much control to the athlete. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. But I want you to understand the levels of responsibility. You have a job. You're at work from 9 to 4 in the NFL. No family should contact you. Nothing. Leave me alone. I'm at work. Leave me alone. I'm at work. Let me work. If we're going to do that, let us work. If you don't want to work, there's the devil. There's the devil. And there are plenty of athletes right now here doing what? Getting free money. Getting free money. Every night on television during a professional game, you can probably spot 5 to 10 athletes out there getting free money. So if we flip that to the players that are being denied to get that extra game, that coach to get that extra experience, who's to blame for that? When you break it down to its purest form, in the end, I don't think none of us are getting it right. I said this in the beginning. When I first fell in love with the theory of sports and talking about sports, how many of us really listen to what's being said, what's being told, and what's being heard? How many of us really, really listen? The age and the progression of sports with technology and the competitive nature and gambling is all affecting the game moving forward. No matter what. You think college basketball going to stop at 68 teams? Bullshit. They're going to keep going. You think the NFL wants 8? The NFL is going to get to 18 games. They're going to get to 18 games. They're going to get there. Baseball, what could baseball shock us that? I could see baseball dropping down to probably 140 games after we get rid of Rob Manfred. I could see that possibly happen. The NBA, they have already given the lead to the players. And we can already tell that Adam Silver is pissed because we saw his reaction, his body language, and his verbiage during All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis. That was the most embarrassing thing the NBA has ever shown us. And they control the needle of all the major sports right now. The NBA is the way to do it when giving back and letting players be themselves. The rest got a long way to go, especially baseball. But when it comes to the state of playing, I need more communication. I need more language in explaining to the fan what's going on when it comes to the state of play. For the teams and the coaches in college basketball that are looking down on the NIT, they gotta, because that could affect recruiting. You know, if you're a big-time basketball school and the only thing you got to go talk to this top recruit about is the NIT, that's not going to fly. That's what I'm saying. We get both sides of the conversation. We get the pros and cons, but how can we make it make sense when it comes to the state of playing sports today? How can we make it make sense? How can we? I've been trying for a minute. I mean, it is, but when it comes to the final equation that we all know about, when it comes to the math of sports, it's sports entertainment equals money. The greatest equation ever out there. And we're not going to get past that. I think we got to get comfortable with the situation, but it has to be more of a introduction, an exit strategy, and possibly an explanation on why did that happen? Because I think sometimes we get left in the dark, especially when load management first happened in the NBA. We were left in the dark. Like, why? Why? But at least now the athlete does come to the arena and dress in civilian clothes, even though they're healthy, but not in a basketball uniform. As in years past, these fuckheads would be at the strip club, getting some lemon pepper wings, being on the motherfucking son of a bitch Instagram. But now it's different. Okay. So I get that part. I get that part of it. I haven't seen baseball flip out too much yet when it comes to the state of playing. Only thing that bothers me about baseball is Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame and the way Major League Baseball ball clubs can fuck with your time of service that could deem your money in your Major League Baseball contract. Those are only two things I have a problem with Major League Baseball. But the rest of you got to figure that out. And the bottom line, who's to blame when it comes to that? Is it our fault Are the fans putting too much pressure on a particular sport to do things that they've been doing at a drastic measure? To either push the talent, okay, or break the team up way before we've even had a chance to compete. You're selling off the team way too fast. Way too fast. But the state of play of playing sports is totally different today. I would like to thank you guys again for tuning in to another action-packed episode of CertaPro Painters Presents Who's to Blame the Podcast, episode 545. I'm your host, Dre Montez. And thank you all so much for tuning in to another action-packed episode. Until next time, in the words of my great-grandpappy, don't forget the details of the day. And most importantly, I'll holler at you later. Peace. And thanks for tuning in to Who's to Blame the Podcast. Peace. And we out.